Hey guys, Peter here to do an album review. Today I'm here to tell you all about the latest from Benighted, Obscene Repressed, out April 10th on Season of Mist. The album has 12 tracks, 38 minutes in length, and this is the band's 9th full-length studio album. This is a concept album, it is a horror story, and I'm really not sure what kind of person, what kind of mind comes up with a story like this, because this is absolutely off the rails as far as evilness, as far as demented approach to storytelling, the story itself. I mean, I don't even know if Stephen King would come up with something as lunatic, as insane, as demented as this one. This story is of a psychotic boy who has a cleft lip, and he sees that cleft lip as a deformity, and not just a small deformity, but a deformity that really impacts his life, the way he perceives those around him and the way he perceives himself. Beyond that, he has a really love affair for his mother. He wants to take his father's place. So he hates his father, loves his mother. He wants to get his father out of the picture so that he can take the rightful place of his father next to his mother. The demented, twisted mind of this child goes to the point where he cuts off his own cleft lip and he makes a meal and he cooks the lip in that meal and he feeds it to his mother. It's absolutely insane. Like, there's not enough words in the English vocabulary to really describe the twistedness of the story on this record. Now, this album, in my opinion, with this kind of a concept, with this kind of a storytelling to it, really influences the way the structure of the album is and the overall sound of the album. One is interconnected with the other. This is a very eclectic album as far as the sound is concerned and as far as the vocals are concerned. You need those two elements to be extremely eclectic in order for the story to come across almost as vivid as possible. And to me, that's exactly what they did. They didn't create any boundaries in terms of genre, in terms of where they had restrictions to what they could do with their sound and vocals. They completely created an empty sleigh, if you will, allowing the story to dictate where the sound went and which specific style of vocals they used throughout the record. So you have an album that is not just a roller coaster ride, it's not just ups and downs. This album is turns and twists and is moving in all sorts of different directions, from song to song, but then even within certain songs, you have a lot of dynamic motions that really changes the sound, the feel, and the approach of the song midstream. Once again, that is the way you can tell a story like this. You cannot follow rigid guidelines when you have a concept and you're telling this kind of a story, because otherwise it's not going to work. You're not going to be able to engulf the listener into the story. I felt like I was part of the story. At least I felt like I was there. I could almost visualize what was happening around me. And you're not going to give that to the listener if you have restrictions. So in my opinion, they created an album that really merges the sound, the vocals, the structure with the concept. They all feed off of each other. And this is the way you create an album like this. This is the way you bring the story to life. Like I said, very eclectic, not putting any boundaries on vocals or sound, just really going whatever the story dictates, with the ups and downs, with the different inflections that you get during the story, with different scenes, the different approach to the vocals in order to create the different characters, to create the mood, the atmosphere of the story. Same thing with the sound. With the way the guitars are played, the drums, the bass, everything is there in order to enhance the dynamic of the story, to really paint a picture for the listener as far as the story is concerned. There are several guest vocalists on this album, and to me, that is an added value. When you have a concept like this and you're telling a story, adding different style of vocals throughout the record really helps tell the story better. It really helps you create the characters, really helps you create the atmosphere of the album. Of all the guest vocalists on the album, perhaps the one that impressed me the most was Jamie Jasta from Hatebreed. He has a part in Implore the Negative. I really like that song, and I really like what Jamie did in the chorus. It made the chorus feel almost hardcore. It changed the style. It gave a little bit of a hookiness to the chorus. It made the chorus feel very catchy, almost a earworm, a song that really steps away from everything else on the record. There's no other song that sounds like this, and in my opinion, that's because of Jamie's style, of his vocals, the approach that he took on that track really sets itself apart. It becomes almost a blend of different genres, and his voice really created a different track that sets the record apart, that really breaks the record, gives you a different style, something different for your ears before you go back to the onslaught of aggression and brutality that this album has to offer. I really like that, and I really like the approach. And to me, of all the guest vocalists, his style was the one that really jumped out the most, because it's the one that's so different, so apart from everything else you're going to hear on the album. To me, the drums and the guitars are really 1 and 2 on this record. They're really a KO punch. You get a left hook and you get a right hook. The two are interconnected. The guitars have great mixture of emotions to it. Great driving riffs, aggressive when they need to be, pounding when they need to be, really driving the sound through the album, melodic at times, groovy at others, always heavy and aggressive. Regardless of what the underlining is, the guitars are really consistent from that perspective. And the drums are their partner. Like I said, the 1-2 KO punch. The drums really partnered up with the guitars, and the two elements really set the tempo. They really set they're really the driving force of the record, if you will. They really tell the song where the song needs to go. They create the momentums, they create the tempos, they create the different pieces of the story. They really engulf the lyrics and give you a more vivid approach in terms of the dynamic that is happening around you as far as the story is concerned. So I really like the 1-2 punch that the guitars and drums on this album have to offer. Creates a very dynamic sound. And then when you add that to the dynamic approach of the vocals with different vocalists, different styles, different way of using screaming vocals, harsh vocals, guttural vocals. There's all sorts of different styles of vocals on this album. So you have a very dynamic approach from a vocal style, then you have a very dynamic approach from a sound perspective. You put those two together, and like I said, you have a very volatile, dynamic album all around. Another element that I have to mention before I go into my favorite songs of the album is the bass. This is an album that really didn't skip on the bass. The bass doesn't have like this predominant role, not as much as the vocals, guitars, and drums, but they really used it, and they used it well. They knew exactly where to put it. It was almost like a surgeon precision. They knew like the incision, they cut it in the right spot to insert that piece of a bass line here and there in order to give the album almost a more somber and evil feel to it, because I felt that the sound of the bass on this album really added that aspect. It didn't add necessary grooviness, it didn't add necessary melody to the tracks, but it added this demented feel to it. It was almost like a pause. You could feel like something is brewing. Every time the bass line came in, you could feel something was brewing. There was something that was going to pick up. Intensity was about to pick up. Aggression was about to pick up. So I really like how they used the bass. Like I said, almost like a surgeon, pinpoint precision on which track and which spot of the tracks. They really wanted that bass to come to the forefront and be one of the main driving forces. I really love that. On an album that is this heavy, this brutal, is so easy to forget the bass. It's so easy to have it hidden underneath all the other layers. They didn't do that on the record, and I really applaud them for that, because I feel like it added something to the overall storytelling aspect of the album. This album is overall a 7-course meal of brutality, heaviness, and horror. That's the best way to describe the album. I really loved it. And while I'm not necessarily a huge fan of grindcore, and I'm not necessarily a huge fan of certain styles of vocals on this album, the way they did it as far as being a part of the story had me hooked, had me convinced. And like I said, while not being a fan, I truly enjoyed this record from top to bottom, and I truly enjoyed the work they did on this album. Now, as far as songs are concerned, I want to start off with The Starving Beast. Great opening riff for this song. It's heavy, but it's contained. It doesn't feel like it's bursting at the seams. It doesn't feel like it's losing its control. Once the vocals come in, then the onslaught of brutality and aggression starts, and it doesn't seem to ever break. It takes over. It just completely dominates the song. The song has a lot of aggression, but you still feel like there's this melodic spine that every so often you get to hear it. It gets to come in a little bit more into the forefront. I really enjoyed that as well. And the changes in speed and the changes in the approach are really important. Like I said, a very dynamic track, very brutal, aggressive track, but still changing ever so slightly. The guitars and drums are really dictating where this song is going to go, where it's going to weave in itself out. One of the things that I really enjoyed as well was the closing. There's a great bass line as it closes off the track. What I said before, they really use that bass like a surgeon. They pinpoint the perfect spots, and in this song they put it right at the closing. What a somber way to close off this kind of aggression, this kind of a track. Loved it. Next, Muzzle. This song is very interesting. It's a fast-moving track, has great drum breaks. I really like that. Powerful vocals, driving riffs, killer bass line. This song really uses the bass a lot. And in my opinion, this is what a punk grindcore song with prog atmospheric elements would sound like. I know it's absolutely a mouthful, and it sounds like nothing belongs together, but this song is divided into two pieces. The first half of the song, and this is a very short song, and that's why I feel that there's a lot of elements of the song that has punk elements to it. The shortness of the song, the style in which it's constructed, the way it sounds, the first half of the song has a lot of punk elements into it. I would say even a little bit of hardcore elements, perhaps more hardcore than punk, but maybe a mixture of both. Let's go with a mixture of both, hardcore and punk. That's the first half of the song. And then there's this really interesting, comes almost out of nowhere, this prog atmospheric bridge that you just don't see this coming at all. The first half of the song does not lend you to believe that this is what you're going to get. Then you get that moment there, there's that bridge there, and then what comes afterwards is just pure onslaught. It's just destruction, aggression. The song becomes 100 times more aggressive, more demolished. There's no breaks, there's no easy steps, it doesn't slow down. It's like this avalanche of sound and aggression coming at you. And that's why I say the song is divided into these two parts, because the first part is very different than what you get after that prog atmospheric element bridge there in the middle that absolutely caught me off guard. Almost like a slap in the face, like I'm just not expecting that. And then the song changes on a dime and it becomes this super aggressive grindcore track as it closes off. Incredible song, incredible structure, and for a song that's very short, they really packed a lot into it in such a short amount of time. Next, Scarecrow. The opening scream of this song really sets the mood. It really tells you what you're getting yourself into as far as the song is concerned. Great sound, great riff. It really partners well with the powerful drums. I really feel like this is one of those tracks that you could really feel the drums and guitars are working together. They're not working side by side. They're not working in parallel. They're really working in unison. The two are intertwined in order to give the song the right dynamics, the right sound, the right approach. Super dynamic, super brutal track. The vocals really match that sound. They really match that approach. This is a song that you really feel the vocals are in perfect sync as far as the brutality of the sound. The vocals just come in and say, you think you're brutal, hold my beer and let me show you what I can do. That's the kind of feeling you're going to get from this song. It really combines well aggression, fast pounding, moving song that just has a lot of different elements, but they're all intertwined. So it's a song that has a lot of layers to it, really hard to break them apart because they're so intertwined together that you really can't look at the drums alone, you can't look at the guitars alone, and you can't look at the vocals alone. You really have to look at the combination of all these three elements and what did they do for this song and what impact the song has with these three elements just coming at you as one full force, blunt trauma. That's how it feels, this track. Alright guys, this is it. This is Benighted, Obscene Repressed, out April 10th on Season of Mist. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.